Welcome to Two Across, the podcast where two friends on opposite sides of the Atlantic catch up over a crossword. I'm Theo in London.
And I'm Rob in Montreal.
This may not be a subject you want to talk about, given last week's thing about you wanting to sort of bury your head in the sand regarding headlines. But I have noticed from this side of the pond that Canada finds itself in many a headline in recent days.
Yes.
Which is in some ways heartening, because it's always nice to see a friend in the spotlight.
Especially a quiet one. But in other ways, obviously, it's slightly depressing, given the subject of most of those stories is tariffs and all the stuff that's going on around that. So why don't you sort of give us your correspondence report? All right. I'm going to give it as much as I can in just sort of lay it out in plain terms, because it's obviously in this country a highly emotionally charged subject. And I found myself getting all wrapped up in the last week, as I think I demonstrated a little bit in last week's pod. So I'll try to do it just factually. So yeah, Trump said that he would impose tariffs as early as December on Canada, and he mentioned it on the campaign trail, but with vague details. And then it sort of crystallized throughout January in a series of X's, I suppose you would say, or truth socials, that he was going to impose 25% blanket tariffs on Canada and Mexico, despite having a comprehensive free trade agreement that makes that illegal, as it were. And that announcement came out that it was going to be at the beginning of March. And then all of a sudden, last week, Trump's spokesperson got on the stage in the media room at the White House and said, oh, no, that was misspoken. It's actually going to be February 1st, which was last Saturday, that we're going to be imposing these tariffs. I think she said that on Thursday. So it was predictable chaos in her speech, which didn't get the headlines it deserved, but Isabel picked it up when we saw it. She said that, because their whole pretext is that illegal drugs are flowing across the border from the south and the north, fentanyl. So Chinese-produced fentanyl is coming through Canada and down, and Mexican-produced fentanyl, as well as Chinese-produced, is coming up, and it's leading to the overdose epidemic in the United States. And then she cited the statistics that fentanyl has killed 10 million Americans in the last...
Wow. That's
the last few years. So I did the research, and it's sort of an order of magnitude off. I believe it may be in the low 100,000s, which is insane. I don't
still
want
very
to...
high. Yeah,
it's incredibly high, and it's incredibly sad. But 10 million, I mean, that's like an appreciable percentage of your population that dwarfs the number of people COVID killed.
So yeah, that all feels like it's been used as a fig leaf, obviously,
yes,
for this sort of very strange economic tactic of protectionism, which is ultimately what it is.
Yes. And, well, protectionism, or ultimately the United States recognizes that they benefit from a trade deal with Canada. They just want to get the terms as favorable as they can for themselves. So this is a very aggressive salvo in the renegotiation of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, USMCA as it is named, in 2026. It's nothing more than that. In fact, our would-be Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who is currently campaigning to be the head of the Liberal Party, and British listeners would know him as the former governor of the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020, said in an interview with BBC Newsnight this week, quite a good interview if you search it up, this is bullying, nothing more. I mean, this is what this is. And essentially it is. It's showing that we have power and we can make you suffer. And I don't even know if they'll follow through with it, because, of course, the thing that I didn't get to is that they did give a reprieve yesterday. So after two calls between Justin Trudeau and Trump, a reprieve was given for a month for us to implement border security measures. And Bob Rae, our ambassador to the UN and former Liberal Party leader nationally, said on Fox News yesterday that, of course, the measures that Canada promised to put in the calls between Trudeau and Trump yesterday actually were announced weeks ago by Canada. So there was nothing new on the table. Apparently Fox got rather annoyed about that, or people did. But anyway, the point is we have a reprieve, but we will see. We will see. Canadians have become very angry. Apparently, the national anthem of the United States was booed at a Toronto Raptors game this week.
I saw that,
Yeah, there's been... So a big stirring up of our innate anti-American sentiments has occurred. And a lot of people see this as an opportunity for Canada to rethink its course, including pursuing free trade agreements with like-minded liberal democracies, such as your country, my good friend.
Yeah. And also this Buy Canada thing, which I've seen has become very popular. The idea of, well, okay,
F them. If they're, if they're going to carry on this way, then we will look after our own and deal with the economic repercussions as best we can.
Yeah.
Because ultimately this is self-harming on the American side.
It's massively long-term self-harming.
Yeah.
But for Canada, this presents an opportunity and a moment of reflection, because the U.S. has shown themselves twice in the last 8 years to be an unreliable partner who have gone back on a trading agreement and illegally imposed tariffs or threatened to do so. Canada can no longer rely on the U.S. as our 100% loyal trading partner and ally. They will always be a trading partner and an ally, but Canada must look abroad, and we have to look at strengthening our relationships with other like-minded liberal democracies. So the EU, the United Kingdom, Japan, South Korea, Australia. I mean, we have to forge and strengthen those links. And that group of countries, more broadly beyond Canada, I think, have to agree that we see the world fundamentally differently from the United States on a number of levels, including the climate transition, including free trade, on so many different levels. And the U.S., while every 4 years they may flop back to a democratic regime, there's no stopping them 4 years later from returning to the kind of anarchy that we're seeing now. And so we cannot rely on them anymore. And yet we cannot abandon our values and the course that we see for the world and stop working to promote that. And so we can't rely on the U.S. anymore, and we have to band together. And my hope is that Canada can participate in that process and even help catalyze it, because we have a lot to lose and a lot to gain. So there, I'll stop.
I saw just as a final note on this subject is that there's a cartoon doing the rounds. There's many cartoons doing the rounds, but one I liked particularly was, I think it was in the Boston Globe. It's Trump with Uncle Sam. He's holding Uncle Sam hostage, and he's holding a gun to his head, and he's saying, "Give us what we want, or the old man gets it." This idea, he's kind of weirdly holding his own country to ransom in the name of this kind of economic tantrum. It's all very odd and yet highly predictable. We kind of sensed all this was coming. It's been a little bit embarrassing on the UK side that he seems to have said that he's going to give a reprieve to the UK because Starmer has been so, quote, nice to him or something. And you're like, A, really? And B, why? But it would be a badge of shame if we became the sort of one nation left in the world that still had a relatively free trade agreement with the United States, given what he's doing everywhere else. But anyway, this stuff always coexists alongside the everyday. So how have things been on that front for you?
Good. Actually, I'm just coming back from a flu, but I realize I've blathered on quite a lot, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. So I'm where you were 2 weeks ago with the sort of come down of the flu. 4 of the 5 of us got whacked. But I did want to touch upon a few points from last week.
Please do.
Just to return to some crossword points. So we had the clue blinkers last week, and I mentioned blinders.
Yeah.
And we were debating that as to whether they were interchangeable. I have researched it, and they are largely interchangeable, with blinkers being more common in the UK and in the sport of horse racing. Right. Whereas in North America, we might generally, outside of horse racing, say blinders. So if we had a horse-drawn carriage on the street, which you do have in the summer in Montreal, the calèche, that horse may be said to wear blinders.
Well, I'd say blinders makes more sense because blinkers don't cause you to blink. They are about blocking out a section of your vision. So, blinders does make more sense. Okay, next,
the chuck-a-boot. We had Chelsea or Chukka as the final clue, which the answer was boot. Now, the chuck-a-boot, I have researched it because I said it was possibly something from the Ottoman Empire, those curly-toed boots.
You did.
Popularized by the Iron Sheik in professional wrestling. And in fact, it is not, sadly. It is a short leather boot, ankle-length, open-laced and unlined, possibly relating to polo, where a chukka is a period of play.
Right.
But these boots, they were popularized, I believe, in South Africa. And they were originally used by British soldiers in North Africa in the Western Desert Campaign of World War II and became a popular item of footwear for general use in the 40s through the 60s. And you can still see them very much in use all over the world. So that is a chuck-a-boot.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And I had one last piece, and I don't know, maybe we touched this in the outro, but we do have a piece of email, but I think I've covered enough and we can cover that in the outro. So let's put a pin in that and we'll come back to it.
Okay, let's pin it. There's something else I wanted to pin as well, which is to report back on the Bob Dylan biopic that I promised.
Yes.
Last episode. So let's save that for the outro chat. And in the meantime, to the crossword.
Let's go to the crossword, because crossing words is fun.
All right, Theo, I believe it is your week to give instruction to the masses.
Indeed, and my crossword of record, so the pressure's on.
Huge.
Which is a reference, by the way, for any new listeners to the fact that we decide, having had a few crosswords where we realised one of us had misspelled something, we decided that we would have one crossword of record each week so that we can judge our success or failure on that particular crossword. So whoever does the intro each week is the crossword of record. So obviously this week that is me. We do the crossword in 30 minutes, sight unseen, and we invite you to play along if you would like to. This week's is the Guardian Quick Crossword number 17,082, and you can access it on the app or the website. And if you can make
or in our show notes.
Or in our show notes, indeed. And hopefully you can navigate around the increasingly aggressive range of pop-up ads that tend to show themselves before you actually get to the crossword. But nevertheless, it's worth the effort because then you can play along. But even if you don't play along, we hope you enjoy listening to us struggle our way through. And just on final one, the scores are currently 9-7. Is that right, Rob? 9-7, because
7-9 if we were to take
7-9. We were successful last week thanks to the aforementioned Chuckaboot. And yeah, hopefully that was the beginning of a stretch of successes. So let's see how we get on. I'm going to start the timer. 30 minutes. And Rob, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, and of course, Theo, you just called the shutout. That's a hockey term. But when you're towards the end of a hockey game, when it's 0 on one side or 0, and your goalie hasn't let in a goal, and then you say, "Ooh, it looks like he might have a shutout." That's the kiss of death.
Kiss of death, right? Yes, yeah. The commentator's curse, otherwise known as.
Yes, sir.
We would call it a clean sheet here.
A clean sheet. Yes.
Yeah. Which always sounds slightly like a child's bedroom terminology or something.
Yes, for sure.
Nevertheless, go on. Where do you want to start? One across.
Nice. Sloped access, 4 across, or 4 letters, 1 across. Sloped access.
Okay, so that's surely ramp.
I thought ramp too, so let's let groupthink take that forward.
There's a very good theatre group, incidentally, called Ramps on the Moon, and they're all about increasing accessibility in the theatre industry. And I think it's a great name for a company that does that.
It is. That's awesome.
So shout out to them. So one down is screw holder, 8 letters beginning with R. Now, I don't know if you have these in Canada, but it is a staple of the DIY world. The humble roll plug, which is basically a plastic thing that you screw a metal screw into in a plaster wall, for example.
Oh, we would call that just an anchor.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, ours for some reason are called roll plugs.
So is that roll or rule?
So I think it's RAWL plug.
Oh, wow.
But I can't be certain.
We can if we look at 8 across.
8 across will help us, because that would be 4 letters beginning with W. And it's say it when you've had enough. 4.
Uncle's too long anyway.
So it's when.
Oh, when. Yes.
Yeah.
And that works with 2 down, which is an excellent word. 2 down, the clue is every good boy deserves favors, say. And it's 8 letters long, and it starts with M, and the 3rd letter is E. And I learned that from Mrs. Whittle, my piano teacher, as every good boy deserves fudge. But
Mrs. Whittle.
Mrs. Whittle. She was South African. She was a lovely, tiny, very old lady.
And this one must be one of the very few, if not only, words that begins MN.
I believe so.
Because it is a mnemonic.
A mnemonic. What a great word. That's one, the etymology of which we need to look up. Just
yeah. Put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that.
The one that I use more than any is the one about the planet order, which is my very easy method. But then I always forget what the rest of it is. But I only need it for the first two because the ones I always get confused are Mercury and Venus.
Oh, okay.
And I can never remember which one's closer to the sun. So when I say my very easy method, I know that it's Mercury then Venus.
See, I struggle more with the outer planets, Theo.
Oh, right.
We're complementary.
So it's something like my very easy method makes for Mars and then like just sense or something or other. I'll Google it. Put a pin in that.
Is it Jupiter, Saturn? Or is it Saturn, Jupiter?
It's Jupiter, Saturn, and then Uranus. And
then Neptune.
Pluto. Yeah. Neptune, Pluto. Although Pluto's disqualified now. Cancelled.
Gone.
Yeah. Gone.
Yeah. Good riddance. Good riddance to bad planetesimals.
Good riddance. So moving on, 11 across, Mollify, P blank O, and then 6 further blanks. So, sorry, 7 further blanks. So it's a 10-letter word. Mollify.
Not seeing it immediately. I think if we get a few letters, we might.
See, I would say placate.
Yeah, me too.
For that. And obviously that doesn't work. So let's move around and see if we can get some others.
Okay. 14 across, I think we can get this. One and only. It's 6 letters long. The first letter is U. The third letter is I.
Inevitably brings to mind Chesney Hawkes and his power ballad, The One and Only, which he was touring when I was a student and I think came to play the university. Ooh. And this wonderful rumour went round that he had actually lost the rights to perform
his own song.
One hit. He like sold them off to somebody, which I didn't even know if that's a thing. I don't know if you can. But anyway, it was a great story because everyone was like, "You're gonna go see Chesney Hawkes. You're not even gonna hear the only song, literally the one and only that he is known for." So anyway,
but did you see Chesney Hawkes? And
well, I didn't. And this story leads nowhere because I didn't go and see him, and in fact, I didn't follow up on my sources to check whether he had lost the performing rights. I just enjoyed the idea that he had.
I think you're gonna have to report back to us on that, Theo, in the next pod.
I will, and more importantly, I think the answer to that must be unique.
I believe it is unique. Yes.
As in the word unique rather than something.
Yes.
That is in itself unique. So
now. We have I don't think I can get this. 10 down is an interesting word because the clue is Pinkerton or Columbo. It's 10 letters long and the fourth letter is a U.
Yeah, because you immediately think detective.
Yes. Yeah, something like that.
Or maybe investigator.
Yeah.
But neither of those fit with the U. So that is...
Gumshoe, Private Dick.
Gumshoe. What was his first name? What was Columbo's?
Oh dear. Ooh.
Oh, I used to watch loads of Columbo when I was a kid. You know, in the day, before the internet ruined everything. And my idea of a really good Saturday afternoon was to tune into an episode of Columbo. And the thing about Columbo was they always showed you the murder being committed at the beginning of the episode. So the pleasure was in seeing how he pieced together the clues to then work out who'd done it.
Yeah.
Which is quite unusual. Normally you're following along with the detective Agatha Christie style to sort of unveil the mystery, but I always enjoyed that you were it was the ultimate dramatic irony, I suppose, that you were the one in possession of the information as the viewer.
Right,
so,
it's true.
Yeah. Huh? Shout out to Columbo, and Peter Falk, I believe, was the actor.
Falk.
But I don't know his first name, and I don't know what other word could go there.
Nor do I.
Instead of detective,
we've got a first name. I think we can plonk in another place, Theo, that could help us scoot around and eventually get that one. So we have Wolf or Wade, 9 across, 8 letters long. Wolf's being spelled WOOLF.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry, for a minute there I was thinking of the lupine variety, but of course it is Virginia.
Yes, this clue is in a section of its own.
Yes, the author and tennis player, side by side, Wolf and Wade.
Oh, I thought you were referring to the Virginia Slims tournament.
Oh, no, alas not. I'm an avid listener, by the way, to the tennis podcast, which is really, for those who enjoy the sport of tennis, obviously,
It's a great listen. So recommendation there. 5 down. What to wear in retirement?
I like this a lot, and I thought I had it, and then I'm not sure because it's cheeky. So you notice Theo's inflection at the end of retirement because it's a question mark, which means to long-term listeners that the clue is a little oblique. And we have a G in the third position. It is a 10-letter long word. And I thought something like nightgown or night robe, because, of course, you're retiring for the night. Or could be a night dress.
That's lovely. I think we can definitely put night in, can't we?
I think so. Of course, night robe and nightgown don't fit. Night dress does.
So, night dress. Let's pencil in night dress with a disclaimer that the dress could be something else.
Now, a night dress technically would be unisex. I mean, Scrooge wore a night dress, didn't he?
He did, yes. And in fact, while this winter's been notably cold in the UK, and I think I've really appreciated for the first time why the Victorians wore so many clothes in bed, including hats and socks and whatever, because you really need it when you haven't got your central heating cranked up and all the rest of it, and you're in a sort of brick house and with wind whistling down your chimneys.
Yep.
Yeah, you need all the layers you can get, including a night dress. Okay, 3 across. Fast and Furious. 8 letters. 4th letter N.
I just cannot stop thinking of that awful series of 14 movies or whatever.
There are so many.
Yeah.
I've never seen a single one.
In fact, I said awful series just because I imagine it to be, but I have never seen a single one. So I think
the problem is as soon as you see the number 12 or whatever after any film title, it's the kind of Police Academy thing, isn't it? You just immediately assume it's complete crap, which actually is not fair on Police Academy, because I used to enjoy the first couple of those. Are genuinely highly enjoyable.
Police Academy 2 with Bobcat Goldthwait, but Police Academy 6, Citizens on Patrol, was really quite awful.
I didn't realize I was talking to a connoisseur.
Oh my God, I love the Police Academy movies. The Blue Oyster, which would completely be cancelled now.
We used to love those films as kids. We absolutely loved them. Yeah. Anyway, we've spent far too much time talking about Police Academy, and we have 17 minutes left. Have we got a guest for Fast and Furious, by the way? I don't have a guest. Do you? Oh, I do have a guest. I do have a guest. I think it might be Frenetic.
Oh, Theo, so good.
Yeah.
That's huge, man, because that opens all kinds of area for us. Well done. You've opened up 3 clues. Let's start right to left. Government policy advisor is C space A space.
Okay, now I'm wondering if Frenetic is right, because I think that might be SPAD.
A SPAD? Whoa.
That's a UK thing, I think.
Oh yeah, that ain't Canadian.
But it could be. Let's try another one.
But what about, because 6 down does work, manner of speaking or writing, T space N space.
Tone?
Yeah, it's got to be. And then
I think you're right, I think this government policy advisor must be something like no, I think I've got it. I think it's czar.
Oh, wow, yes.
They say, like, energy czar.
Kamala Harris was the border czar. That's one of the ways they skewered her in the election.
Yeah. Yeah. It always strikes me as a weird thing, that using the word czar.
It is very strange.
It's just so dictatorial, isn't it? Is. I am the energy czar. You will do all that I command. Yeah.
There will be no speaking of renewables on my watch. The energy czar has spoken.
Yeah, exactly. So incredibly old school. But anyway,
do you know the origin of czar is actually Caesar? That's the etymology of czar.
I mean, it makes sense, but I can't see the connection between those two words.
Yeah, no, I think it got Slavicized at some point. But
Slavicized.
I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the origin of czar.
I was listening to the Rest is History episodes on the Roman emperors, Caligula. And
the sexy emperor.
The sexy emperor. And yeah, a lot of parallels with certain of today's world leaders. 4 down, rum accompaniment, 6 letters, R blank I.
Yeah, blank, blank, blank.
Have you got a guess for that?
No, sir.
Rum and...
But it does have another question mark behind it.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Raisin, Theo.
Raisin.
Beautiful.
One of those ice cream flavors that has gone completely out of fashion. I think my mother might have eaten a rum raisin in the past, but there's no...
I like a rum and raisin.
Really?
No, I genuinely do. And you're right, it's not often seen these days.
Alcohol has entirely fallen out of favor in desserts, hence the demise of the trifle.
You're so right. You're so right.
Oh, well.
It's just the wokerati.
Completely.
Ruined our desserts. Right. Come on, we need to motor here. 11 across. This Mollify.
Oh, I know.
So it's 10 letters. We now have P blank O and then blank 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 I blank T. Mollify.
I know.
So it could end T-Y, I suppose.
Yeah, it's very confusing. I think we're just going to, let's see if we can get 10 down. Well, that's Pinkerton and Columbo. Given the time constraints, let's come back to it. As I often say, let's just go somewhere else. This one's for you, Theo. On tick, 15 across. The R is the second letter, and it is 6 letters long. And this sounds like something you would have at the tuck shop. I purchased it on tick. And you having been a boarding school boy in your life, you must have bought some things on tick at the tuck shop.
Oh, no, I've no idea what that is a reference to, Rob. I'm sure I did,
well,
but...
on tick is free, or it's on credit, isn't it? Yeah, credit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, because obviously... Well, thank you for explaining that. The tuck shop was pretty much cash free, I seem to remember.
Yeah, and, that's true.
All done on the never never, as they say.
Yes.
Credit. Okay, thank you for explaining that.
On tick.
So let's see what else we can get. Okay, 18 down.
Yep.
I think we can get this one. Is door fastening, 4 letters. A lock, do we think?
Yep. I think that could work. That will give us a K as the first letter of a 8-letter long clue for place in society, 22 across. I'm not sure about that, starting with K.
No, I'm not sure about that. And it also gives an O as the first letter of judge, 8 letters.
A door fastening could, there's a hinge. It could be a clasp. It could be...
Well, it needs to be 4 letters.
No, you're right. Neither work. Door fastening.
What is there another word for the catch or even for the handle?
Knob.
Knob, yeah, that's not bad.
But then a place in society starts in B.
One's place in society.
Yes.
One's... No.
Yeah.
Rob. I think this is going to be hard. We've got 11 minutes left, by the way. So
here, 16 down, wall painting, 6 letters long.
A mural? No. Or fresco.
See, that's a mural won't fit. A fresco does, but isn't a fresco supposed to be on a ceiling?
Frescoes can definitely be on walls.
What about a frieze?
Oh, frieze.
Could that
That's
fit?
probably more likely. Yes. Yes, I like frieze. Let's go
is
frieze.
that I-E or E-I?
I-E, yes.
Okay.
F-R-I-E-Z-E.
You think could that be right? Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What else would you... No, I can't. I mean, fresco is possible if we find ourselves...
Yeah, if we find ourselves...
needing those
unable
letters.
To find it. Okay. What about...
But I think fresco is more about the technique, isn't it? Rather than
but I think a fresco's on a ceiling. That's what I'm concerned about. But anyway, let's see.
Okay.
13 down, background to the drama. It is 5 letters, 3 letters, and our second letter is T. Background to the drama.
Oh my God. Because you immediately think of a subplot or a backstory or a... Oh, man.
And no.
I'm not seeing it. 12 down, extra feature on a similar theme. Second letter of D.
Addition.
8 letters, yes. Addition. Lovely.
And then 23 across is Windsor, for example. It is 4 letters long with an N as the second letter.
Yeah, so that's not.
Yeah.
And then 21 across is another quickie because that's uneaten bits of apple, blank I, blank S. That must be pips.
Yep.
Background to the drama now has so the second letter, which has 3 letters in it, is S blank
T.
Which must be set.
So it must be set.
Story set?
So stage set.
Is it?
I would say
Okay.
is more likely. It's an odd
It is
sort
very
of
odd.
way of saying it, but it does work.
It does work for 17 across, which is grim, and it would be ending in I space G with stage set, and that would be
Something ing.
oh, but yeah. So then it would be 10 letters long, and it would be fourth letter R, sixth letter S, and then space ING.
Do you know what I think it is, Rob?
I do not.
I think it's disgusting, which means freeze would be wrong.
Grim, but grim isn't disgusting, is it?
No?
I don't know. Grim is sort of like foreboding or dark or oppressive, or it could be oppressing. No, that doesn't work. That's not a word.
It is a word.
Oppressing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't know if disgusting really is grim. Oh, no.
Let's try and get another letter. Actually, the only other letter we can get is this bloody Pinkerton or Columbo. Who was Pinkerton, by the way?
No clue, man.
It's definite. Oh, Rob.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's their first names. I mean, who knows?
I think it is their first names.
Oh, God. That's terrible.
Yeah, we're struggling here, Rob.
Yeah,
we
we
got
are.
nearly 7 minutes left. Okay. I'm looking again at this Mollify. And it must be either P, so it's P blank O at the start. So that must be
Ooh, could grim be depressing?
yeah, could.
Because that would fit with everything we've got, and it keeps freeze in the...
It does in the running.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Depressing. Grim, depressing. Yeah, that works. Let's do it.
Okay.
And Pinkerton or Columbo now has a fourth letter of U, sixth letter of E.
Yes.
And it's 10 letters. This is going to be one of these that we're going to have to make up a word.
I'm just looking at Mollify right now. So just for listeners, we're missing 11 across, which is a 10-letter word for Mollify, starting in P, third letter O, second last letter T, and fourth last letter I. We have Columbo and Pinkerton, which is 10 down. I'm not going to get into how many letters we have. It's quite long, but it's 10 letters long.
I think it's one of those you either know or you don't.
We have Judge.
And we don't, unfortunately.
8 letters long, potentially starting in O, but we don't know. And then we have...
So Judge could obviously be to, the person of a judge, or it could also be to pass judgment on something. So, criticize? No.
Oh, wait. Place in society. Station.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't
But
fit. Damn it.
it doesn't fit.
Damn it.
Doesn't fit.
Oh.
Yeah, one's station.
Yeah.
One's position.
Oh,
One's...
position.
No, because it...
Well, hasp.
Oh, does it?
Hasp. Could that be our fastener? A hasp?
I've never heard it before. Also, position ruins freeze, you realise.
Yes, I know that.
But it doesn't ruin fresco.
Ooh, no, it does not.
I think it is fresco, and I think it's position.
I think it's got to be fresco, so I guess I
And
was
then-
wrong.
And then door fastening has a last letter of P, which, a hasp could be a thing?
I mean, I don't know. A hasp? Sounds like something that kind of...
Yeah, it sounds like... Sod it. We haven't got much time. We've got 3.5 minutes.
So, Judge is now A, starting in A, second last letter S for judge.
Okay.
I mean, a judge is an assessor, or to judge. Oh, dear. Okay, I'm just going to look at...
Analyze?
Yes. Yeah, could be.
Doesn't quite fit. Doesn't fit.
A creative work, Theo. 4 letters long, ending in S. Could that be an opus? Appraise for judge. Appraise. Okay, wait.
We're getting there.
Okay, so now we've got 2 left. We've got Columbo is 3 spaces, U space E space A space T. So it's got to end in A-N-T or A-S-T. Unt. Or ast.
That's not a name.
I can't think of a name that ends with A.
Okay, we've 2 left. Come on, we got to get this. And then...
What? I've got it. It's Lieutenant. It's Lieutenant Columbo.
Or Lieutenant, as I would say.
Lieutenant.
Like Lieutenant Dan.
Just one more question.
Theo,
I had to get that in.
We've only got one left. Mollify.
It's Lieutenant. You say one left. I'm not entirely sure about hasp. I think we need to have a good look at that if we have time. But let's try and get Mollify.
P space O space I space I space T space.
Right, so it must be pro.
It's got to be A-T-E,
something.
I think. I-A-T-E.
I-A-E-8.
Yeah. Yeah, prociliate or something.
Oh. Okay, come on.
I'm putting prociliate in until we can figure something better out.
Okay.
Because I don't even know what that means, but it sounds like a word.
I'm taking all other letters out.
Mollify.
So we can just. So what did Justin Trudeau do to President Trump to persuade him to delay the tariffs by a month?
So mollify is you do that to a child, you do that to it's very
a
apt.
baby, or a pet, or you mollify them with Come on, Rob. Prociliate. Because it could end...
That's what I'm putting for now. I'm just thinking of a word that...
Ciliate. Okay.
Now, will that have an S or an a C?
I mean, I'm not sure it's a word,
no,
so...
you're right.
Who knows? But a C.
Yeah, okay. Well, conciliate, though, because I was thinking of conciliate. Is probably why I put that in. Okay.
Prociliate. Oh, I prociliated him.
Yes, don't worry. He's quite prociliated now.
I've never heard that in my life. But who knows, Rob? We've had these before. Where they just throw in a really obscure word just to make you feel stupid. So that could be... Yeah. Okay, we've got 15 seconds. I think we go with prociliate and hasp because I don't think we've got any time.
And it's completed.
We have completed the crossword for better or for worse.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's going to be for worse, but let's find out. Okay. That's the timer.
There we go, friends. Okay, so this is an interesting situation because we could stop. Let's just stop for a moment. Let's just stop.
Yeah.
And
take a breath.
Reflect upon our potential success, but our achievement at having put letters in every box before we're potentially completely prociliated by our loss.
Yeah.
Or no, we can prociliate ourselves after our loss with banter.
We have absolutely, for come what may, completed this crossword.
Can I look up the word prociliate, Theo, just for fun?
Yes, okay. That's always a good way to do this.
Let's do that.
See what Google throws up.
Okay, so it's not looking good because when I look at prociliate, ain't nothing coming up here.
Does it just say, are you sure?
Wait a minute. The Oxford English Dictionary says prociliate, meaning, etymology, and more. Shall I click on it?
Yeah.
The earliest known use of the word prociliate is in the 1600s. It's from the writings of Thomas Powell, lawyer and writer. Prociliate is a borrowing from Latin combined with an English element. But what does it mean?
Tenterhooks here, Rob.
But the only place that's giving me anything is the Oxford English Dictionary, and everyone else is ignoring its potential existence. So
right, I'm gonna just cut to the chase.
Methinks she is not a word, my friend.
No, methinks, and methinks hasp is also not a word. But let's find out.
All right.
Prociliate is propitiate.
Propitiate. Oh, God darn it.
Balls. So we were not that far out.
Propitiate. And hasp, is hasp correct?
Hasp is correct.
Oh.
So that's something.
That's something. So
we were just one away.
So we got everything right except for propitiate, which it was most unpropitious of us to have missed that.
I was going to say I think I've heard propitious as a...
I've heard propitious. Propitious is sort of... What's a good synonym for propitious? Sort of fortunate, I think, isn't it?
Okay.
Like a most fortunate turn of events, a most propitious occurrence.
According to the dictionary, propitiate is to win or regain the favour of, e.g. a god, spirit or person, by doing something that pleases them. The pagans thought it was important to propitiate the gods
with sacrifices.
Yes, and propitious, presenting favorable circumstances or showing signs of a favorable outcome. Auspicious.
I don't think we need to be too hard on ourselves there. I think that was quite hard.
That was the ersatz of this crossword. And
it was the ersatz.
I'm going to give get of the day today to a short clue, but I'm giving it to Tsar, which was just magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I was quite pleased with that.
Tsar was the winner today.
Well, that's that.
That's that.
All to play for.
They have a good
time.
onomatopoeic expression in Quebec when a situation like that happens, which is wash, which just means that sucks. Or that's just gross. Wash.
Is that just W-A-S-H?
No, it's O-U-A-S-C-H. Wash.
Wash.
Yeah.
I like
it's
that.
A very good word.
That is good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was wash.
Yeah. Gross. Oh, well, there we go.
Crosswords done. That was fun. Now let's have a chat.
So, chat time.
Chat time.
Let's get to the pins. You had a pin, firstly.
I have an email from a listener, Theo.
Oh, so exciting.
I know. So I have an email
We
from
love emails.
Alex Egan, and we'll get into that in a moment.
twoacross@gmail.com. No, twoacrosspod@gmail.
twoacrosspod@gmail.com. And having written to that, Alex says, "Hi, Rob and Theo. I love listening to your podcast, love your discussions and banter, political or otherwise, and joining in the crossword, of course. This is just a little suggestion as you were saying about searching for things you've mentioned, such as the Spinning Jenny or your band, Rob. Perhaps put a link on your episode page to all the things you give a shout out to. I notice Adam Buxton does this on his, and it is very useful. Have a lovely week, and I look forward to the next episode," which, of course, we're just recording right now, Theo, so it's very timely. So,
very timely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's a great suggestion because we did get into the format of crosswords as a sort of invitation to randomness with the idea that it would throw us in all kinds of directions. And it does throw up a lot of things that we would never have imagined we would discuss. Like, in fact, we get into every show and we have literally no clue where the conversation's going to go, but it often dredges strange things out of us. And maybe we need to get better at sharing links to those at the end of the show.
Very good point made. And I will endeavour to take it on board when I do the show notes going forward. Part of the problem is, well, I don't note down as we go what we're referencing. So sometimes stuff kind of slips through the net. That just through my own idiocy. But also I think because I've been in the habit of just putting the same links each week that I haven't necessarily been adding specific ones for that episode. But you're right to reference Adam Buxton as well, because he is very good at always making sure his notes are very well linked up and gives his guests lots of links to their stuff. And so I will endeavour to channel my inner Buxton and attempt to do that. So thank you.
For those of you who didn't know, Theo is, as you have now learned, the writer of our lovely show notes and review of all our episodes, including our pithy 3-word titles.
Yes, which are probably not good for our marketing strategy, because we should be going for much sort of sexier, clickbaity titles on the episodes. But it's always quite fun thinking, what words should we choose this week for the headline? And maybe I think we'll carry on like that. I mean, we've been going like that for this far, so we may as well continue. Anyway, yes, really thanks for that feedback. Now, Rob, that reminds me, you mentioned that the person who designed the artwork for your album Aviary, Enthusiasts on Spotify, had been in touch with us. I'm assuming that person is one and the same.
That is Alex Egan, who just wrote. So, and we'll put a link. So now, because I know if Alex is listening right now, she's saying, I didn't write the email for that, which we know. But yeah, Alex is an artist. She's a painter, and she paints incredible things. A lot of nature, in fact, a lot of work with trees, many of which we have hanging in this house, including an amazing painting of horses. So Alex is actually the wife of my godfather and cousin, and a good friend of mine and of the family. And we will share a link on our website to Alex's Instagram, where you can see a lot of the paintings that she's made. But one of those is the cover of my latest LP, Aviary, which we mentioned in the last episode. And she had produced that piece, and I cannot exactly remember the origin of it. It had to do with a particular saint. There's a religious connotation to it that I don't know the backstory of. However, I saw it on Instagram or somewhere a couple of years ago, and I thought, that is ridiculously beautiful, and it felt like it was such an incredible fit with what I was planning to put out with this album. And so I reached out to Alex and asked her if she would deign to allow me to make use of her beautiful artwork on my cover, and she said yes. So yeah,
it is very, very beautiful, and a big shout out to Alex. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. So my pin was to report back on seeing the Bob Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown, which I did last week and really enjoyed. And I know you said last week that you were a bit of a biopic refuse-nick, but I think you'd enjoy it, Rob.
Okay.
If only for the music. There's so many scenes of Bob Dylan, aka Timothée Chalamet, sitting in his pants with a cigarette in his mouth, just casually composing some all-time greatest hit. And it makes you. It certainly made me feel quite nostalgic for the days when that was what making music was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good. It's good. The one thing I would say, as a note of just sort of observation, I think it's a surprisingly conventional biopic for an artist who is obviously not very conventional. And it's made by the same director who directed the Johnny Cash biopic, Walk the Line. Mm-hmm. And Cash actually features quite prominently as a character. So it's a sort of slightly strange experience watching it. Sort of thinking, this feels like a fairly kind of glossy version of the Dylan early years.
Yeah.
You know, sort of slightly sepia toned and all of that. But I loved the music. But anyway, it prompts me to ask, Rob, have you ever seen Dylan perform?
It's funny. I have folky roots. Bob Dylan, I think I have an allergy to anything that's quite aggressively overplayed. So it also feeds into my sort of disinterest for the Beatles. Yeah. My dad was a big Bob Dylan fan, so it featured quite prominently in our car trips of childhood. A lot of Rolling Stone and all the great Bob Dylan songs. I think I'm sort of ambivalent towards Bob Dylan. I mean, he's sort of there. I'm aware of his existence. There have been moments where I've had some flirtations. I think I have one of his LPs. I think I have John Wesley Harding, which is sort of his later post-electrification phase. I recognize that he is and was an incredible songwriter, incredibly influential, but he doesn't speak to me as much as, for instance, a Neil Young does, for whatever reason.
No, I mean, for me, probably as someone who was very aware of him, if not particularly knowledgeable of him, it was a good gateway into learning a bit more about his impact in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And I listened to the albums that are featured in the film, and yeah, I think definitely gained a wider appreciation of his qualities, particularly as a lyricist, actually.
Yes.
And his roots in kind of the circus and all of that is also quite interesting to me.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's mentioned in the film, only really in passing, but it's the idea that he sort of, ran away to join the circus type thing. It's slight similarities to the Elvis story, I think, in the way that he came up through that sort of route. But anyway, yeah, it was good. And having not previously been the biggest fan of Timothée Chalamet, I think because I saw him in a Shakespearean film many, many years ago called The King, in which he played Henry V, and I really wasn't very impressed by that, either the film or the performance. So I was probably sort of slightly put off him as an actor early on, but I really thought he was excellent in that very difficult role, and definitely convinced as Dylan, which is, of course, no mean feat. Yeah, anyway, you did mention you were going to try and see the Jesse Eisenberg film, A Real Pain. Did you manage to do that yet?
Well, I tried to, and then I realized that it's not in theaters in Canada anymore, so I'm going to have to see it on Netflix or something along those lines. So, but I did, because I was inspired by you going to see a film on a Thursday afternoon. So I decided on a Friday afternoon I'd go see a film, and the one that was playing close by was Nickel Boys, if you've heard of that. And it was playing in the afternoon, so I went to see it with my kids when they got back from school. So I ended up taking all three of my kids, which is probably not appropriate. So it details two African American boys at basically a reform school, which is more of a penal colony in sort of North Florida in the late 60s, and this sort of just brutal abuse that they suffer and so forth at this place, and the long-term trauma, because it moves between a character in the events of these years they spent at this reform school, and then him and as an adult, and the sort of trauma that he's endured and that he's having to process as an adult, having lived through that in his younger years. And it's incredible because it's filmed as though it were from the perspective of these two friends. So it's first person filming. You see through their eyes the entire film. And it is, I'd read about it somewhere and I thought, okay, this would be really interesting to see. And it takes you about 20 minutes to get into it because it's quite disorienting, this filming style, because you're sort of hearing them talking as though it's in your own head, and they're looking out at everything. And they have these incredible scenes where they'll sort of look up at a mirror on a ceiling and see themselves, but you're sort of looking down at yourself. But it brings you into the story in a really unique way that would be difficult to do without that first person perspective. So I was really keen on seeing that, and it didn't disappoint. So I would highly recommend that as a film to see. Nickel Boys.
Great.
Yeah.
Nickel Boys. Yeah. Probably won't take my kids. Definitely.
I looked over at my 10-year-old at some point and I thought, and then I looked around the theater and I thought, how many people here think that I'm a psychopath for bringing a 10-year-old to this movie? But there you go.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's important that the kids get to enjoy a broad range of culture and not just stuff that is sort of
Marvel
tooled for their particular age group. Oh, don't get me started on Marvel. No, It seems to get everywhere. Yeah, we've never watched anything to do with Marvel in our house, but somehow Batman and Captain America and all these characters are now massive in his life.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's impressive the way that they've managed to work these stories into the kind of national consciousness or the international consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows. My son knows barely anything about Jesus, but he really knows everything there is to know about Batman. So
yeah, fair enough.
What does that tell you about our society? But anyway, we've possibly waffled on too long, Rob. We've slightly lost track of the time today because we've had a few technical issues. Sorry, you were going to say?
No, I was just going to say that Batman is a much more nuanced character than Jesus. Jesus is just sort of good all the way through, but for the temptation of the devil in the desert. Whereas Batman, is a lot going on there, you know? Like, is he good? Is he bad? I mean, it's
a good point.
Yeah, and I think that introduces us to our own inner darkness, Theo. Whereas did Jesus give us that opportunity to sort of examine our own shadow? Yeah. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm going to leave listeners with that thought, my friend.
I feel a PhD thesis coming on, Rob.
It's time.
That's a very tantalising little cliffhanger to end on.
Yeah.
Right, let's call it a day. Partly because your internet connection is definitely fading. Much like, no doubt, the attention span of our listeners.
This whole episode is pixelating.
It really is. Pixelated to the point of complete incomprehensibility. All right, just bring the curtain down. I'm like the film producer. Just cut everything. Cut the lights. Yeah, okay. We're done. Thank you everyone for bearing with us through this. We really appreciate you listening. We'd love to hear your feedback, much as Alex kindly shared, and the email address to do that is twoacrosspod@gmail.com. You can, if you are so minded to do, also find us on X at twoacrosspod. But most importantly, if you could give us a like and a subscribe on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts on, we'd be really, really grateful. So thank you as always for your company, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.